going into conversation with me and this interrogator. And one minute he's talking to me, and then, you know, then he's screaming at the detainee because this guy, I guess he didn't say his name during roll call loud enough, and so for punishment they're making him say this number over and over and over again.
His number?
The detainee.
The detainee's number?
Right, and they were telling, I guess his punishment was to say this number over and over and over again, and so of course his, you know, the volume of him saying this over and over would start to go lower, and then the MP would like yell at him for not doing that. You know, which isn't a big deal, but it was just weird, the mentality of this MP who's, you know, talking to us, and he's like, you know, oh, hey, how you doing, blah, 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 and, you know, and he's like telling this guy to shut the hell up, you know, screaming at him, and then back to normal conversation, and back to screaming, and then back to normal conversation. And I was like, man, these guys are, you know, the responsibility these guys have is just, I don't know if I could do it. And then it was just kind of crazy because this, you know, we're going into this holding cell just to take, you know, nice, cute pictures of the airplanes this guy made from his MRE, and he was like a really frail old man, and I mean, you know, I'm just sitting there wondering, like, you know, what was this guy doing here to begin with? Did you see naked prisoners? No, but I could have. I mean, it was just one of the, like, again, I didn't want to see, you know, so I didn't look.
Former Army Sergeant and Abu Ghraib whistleblower Samuel Provance will come back to this exclusive interview in a minute.
We'll get rid of the dictator, rebuild your country, make sure all your kids go to school. We'll clean up the cities, get the sewage plants running, institute parliamentary rule. We'll bring you autonomy, senators and judges, and a shiny new blue banner. We'll bring you pride and prosperity, food in your bellies, in every home, a phone, fax, and scanner. After we torture our prisoners, we'll bring you decades of peace, spiritual release, free religious expression. You can say what you want in the papers you run. We'll never force a confession after we torture our prisoners. The oil will flow just where it should go.
David Rovik singing After We Torture Our Prisoners. Here on Democracy Now!, democracynow.org, The War and Peace Report. I am Amy Goodman. As we return to our interview with Abu Ghraib whistleblower Samuel Provance, I asked him to talk about reports that interrogators abused a 16-year-old Iraqi female prisoner.
And that was actually one of the first things I heard was there was some guys that had gotten in trouble, and then I talked to their friends about it. And what had happened was two interrogators had been drinking one night and then went to you know, the hard sites to, you know, where they hold all the detainees that they interrogate, and went under there under the guise of, you know, we're here to interrogate this girl, and I guess she was 16 years old, and, you know, they took her out, but instead of interrogating her, they had plans of molesting her or even raping her. And it may have been the one girl they called jokingly Feta Teen, because she was really flirtatious with soldiers and supposedly had love letters that soldiers had written her, and she was always, you know, they said that she was always trying to flirt with soldiers and whatnot. And so, anyways, they said these guys had gotten caught because the MP on duty that night had noticed that something was amiss, and especially when he went by and saw that her shirt was taken off. So, you know, he made a phone call and got the situation under control. But then came their prosecution, and I was even asked by one of their friends to lie and call Colonel Pappas's character into question, to somehow negate his authority, but you know, I'm not going to do that. But nothing ended up happening to them. you know, I was told they were given some kind of suspension or some kind of Article 15, but it was, you know, basically brushed under the carpet, and never heard from again. And then even later, they denied that anything had even happened at all.
You also talked about them playing loud music. What music? What did they do?
They said they would play all kinds of music, you know, Led Zeppelin, hard rock and whatnot, and then, but what I thought was disturbing was they said that their favorite was the Barney I Love You song from the children's television show. And, but the way they described it, I mean, it was like everything was a game anymore to them, dealing with these detainees, you know, that it's like they weren't even people to them anymore.
Can you talk about the use of dogs, Samuel Provance?
The most pronounced time I heard about dogs was in the beginning of December, when they were talking about an incident where they were using the dogs to scare the detainees, and how you know, how funny it was to see how they would run back into their cells, and you know, it was just it was maniacal, you know, kind of a laughter, and it was just, and I'm like, you know, what's next, you know.
Sam Provance, you were the only military intelligence soldier listed in the Taguba report as a witness.
Right.
How could that be? Explain.
I don't know. I mean, when I cooperated with the investigators, CID, I assumed that I was going to be, you know, at the bottom of a long list. And yet there I was, all by myself. The only other intelligence personnel was a civilian by the name of Torrin Nelson. And he's kind of went through somewhat of an ordeal as I have. But the only way I can describe it is that, you know, the soldiers, and most specifically people in intelligence, are trained to keep quiet. And they really feel that they're a part of an inner circle, and no matter what goes on in that inner circle, good or bad, stays in that inner circle. Anyone outside of it, you know, should never be privy to it. And even the psychological assessment done on the prison for the investigation even said that there appears to be a conspiracy of silence among the MI personnel.
Sam Provance, can you talk about the ghost prisoners, the ghost detainees?
That was something I really didn't know about beyond being told that there were people that were there that they didn't know were there anymore, but that was because of a lack of tracking and accountability. I don't know about the specific ghost detainees where they actually brought people in and specifically left them off the books. I didn't know anything about that. But it's things like that that you just didn't know what was going on there. You know, there were so many different moving pieces and very important and very powerful people, you know, monitoring what was going on. I mean, most people think that what happened at Abu Ghraib was just a handful of soldiers, you know, out in the middle of nowhere at some remote outpost, when in reality it was the premier hub of human intelligence, you know, being watched by the highest powers to be. I mean, even before I had gotten there, Donald Rumsfeld had visited there, Paul Wolfowitz, other, you know, representatives for, you know, other people in our government, as well as our own, you know, Army powers that be, such as General Ricardo Sanchez and, you know, General Fast, and there was brass all over the place on the prison itself. I mean, there was more first sergeants and commanders than you could shake a stick at. You know, that's why I know there's, I mean, and even what was going on, I mean, even the cooks knew things that were going on. Even the mechanics knew the things that were going on. And that's why, even to this day, I'm just completely amazed that there's been nobody else that, you know, has had their conscience bother them to come forward and say, look, you know, this is what was really going on, and that, you know, it wasn't just these MPs, and that these MPs were really doing what they were told.
Talk about, well, you have the Taguba investigation, and you were surprised that other folks like yourself did not come forward. You did not think you would be the only one. What about General Ricardo Sanchez talking about an investigation into what happened?
Yeah, we're actually still at the prison because by then they had a Armed Forces Network feed into a television there that we could watch the news. And, you know, we're watching this news, and then General Sanchez is on there saying that there's now going to be an investigation into Abu Ghraib, but we had kind of had a preview of that because of CID's, you know, beginning to question people. And I was like, you know, because I'd been telling them all along that they needed to be careful about what they were doing or not doing because, you know, it was only a matter of time before we would begin getting investigated, just like Guantanamo Bay was.